today's inspirational message. And like I said from the last video, I want to keep with this time management theme and really help you focus on what you need to do to get on track and get the goals and dreams that you say you want. And so as we talked about last week, all of us get 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. No matter how rich, how poor, where you're from, what ethnicity you are, everyone gets the same amount of time. So the question is, how do you make the most of it? And today we're going to talk about priorities. How to prioritize the important stuff. Today's quote comes from a man named Harvey McKay. He's an author, best-selling author of 4 different books, one of them being called How to Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. And he said these very words: decide what your priorities are and how much time you'll spend on them. If you don't, someone else will. And so we're talking about your time, and if you don't take command, take control of what you want to do with your time, how to prioritize your time will just kind of leak out and fill itself doing things that aren't necessarily going to help you in the long run. And so today, I want to share with you a story, a pretty famous story that I heard that really helped me visualize priorities and time management. To illustrate the story, we're going to use the magic of the storyboard. Yeah! One day, a philosophy professor stood before his class. When class started, he presented a few special items to the class. Before the class, he presents a huge empty jar and he starts filling it up with large rocks. And he filled it all the way to the top. And then he asked his class, and the professor asked, "Is the jar filled?" Yes, it is absolutely filled to the top. Then the professor started filling it up with smaller pebbles. And the professor filled it all the way up as the little rocks made its way through the crevices and filled up the jar. Again, the professor asked, "Is the jar filled?" Yes, it's absolutely filled now to the very top. You can't add anything more to it. Then the professor started taking out sand and started filling the jar. And the professor filled it all the way up to the top as the sand sifted through and filled the jar. Again, the professor asked, "Now is the jar filled?" This time, they weren't so sure and they remained silent. Then the professor took out some water and began pouring water into the jar. And the professor filled it all the way to the top. And then he said, "Now it's filled. Now, I want you to recognize that this is your life. The rocks are the important things. Your family, your health, your children, anything that is so important to you that if it were lost, you'd be nearly destroyed. The pebbles are the other things in life that matter, but on a smaller scale. The pebbles represent things like your job, your house, your car. The sand is everything else, and the water, the small stuff. If you put the sand or the pebbles into the jar first, there is no room for the rocks. The same goes for your life. If you spend all your energy and time on the small stuff, material things, you will never have room for the things that truly matter most. Pay attention to the things that are critical in your life. Make the most of it, because there's always time for the little stuff. But make sure that the big stuff go in first." So as you can see with that story, the rock symbolizes the things in your life. And obviously the bigger rocks are the ones that take priority, the things that really, really matter. And the smaller rocks, those are the things that are cool, that they may be fun, but they're not as important. If you put in the small rocks first, which is the more meaningless, trivial things, you won't have room, you won't have time to put in what's really important. You can't fit the big rocks anymore. And so once again, I challenge you to identify, what are the big rocks in your life? What are those must-haves that must go into your schedule? And then from there, all the little things will fit in the crevices. It'll find its way to fill your time. But at least you know you got your priorities straight. You're knocking out all the things that you need to get done. So once again, I want to encourage you to keep managing your time well. And I want the very best for your life. And once again, thank you for watching. And remember, when you're tired, get inspired.